Hey guys, my name's Sam and welcome to Prep Medic. This week's video is a little bit different than I originally had planned. I really wanted to get the full helicopter walkthrough out and uploaded. However, I have just hit a couple roadblocks and had to focus on my undergrad and some other projects. So one of the things that I did film while I was filming that video was a detailed walkthrough by our lead pilot of all of the controls of our helicopter and all of the avionics. And it really goes in depth. It is far too much to put in the walkthrough video. So I decided to turn that into kind of its own mini topic. And I'm just gonna play that. It's minimal editing, but I think it's pretty cool. And it is another profession in EMS. If you want to become a helicopter pilot, fly HEMS, this video might be for you. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Okay, so this panel in this helicopter is one of the best in the industry. It's a full glass panel, and this helicopter was brand new to us 3 years ago. We have a G750, 650 stack. On this side, 750, 650, and on this side is the 500. So if you take this GPS and you say a direct to, like we will say we're gonna go to University Hospital in Denver, all touchscreen in here. We have our waypoints already put in. You plug it in and then you hit activate. It'll draw the white or the purple line on there, and it gives you your heading that you need to fly, so your track you need to fly, your distance. It also will give you your ground speed in knots, so that's altered by a headwind or a tailwind, and then your estimated time en route. So usually it'll say about 22 minutes. That will cross feed over on this side, and this is our artificial horizon. So when you're flying, you're able to see on the screen here the blue sky and the ground, obviously. Where the yellow is where you're actually flying to. This one also shows terrain and another spot on there. This down here that you see, it's a little arrow, it says 9,000 feet. That's traffic on there actually. So this also has ADS-B, and you can see live traffic on here. Because we're a helicopter and we fly a little lower, we have the towers on here. So all these little red spots on there that you see as a tower, that's gonna affect our line of travel. The other thing that we have is we have the ability to plug this one in to go to a different spot. A lot of people will have these cross-fill each other, and we don't, because we fly in such strict airspace. We are quite often going through Class Bravo in Denver. We want to make sure we have two different tracks going through. We always know where we're at. So this one, you can see the purple lines going to the east, and this one's going south. If I want to go to where the purple line is, I'll come back over on this side and I'll push number 2, and you'll see the tracks will then go to Greeley, which is what I plugged it into. This one as well has our distance, the track, our heading we would fly. So you're able to navigate to two different things. Why is that important? If we're going to a scene call and they have given us waypoints, instead of having to cancel out, you can just re-enter in the waypoints on the bottom and somewhat find the side of the scene that way. Up here we have filters, so this says our lights, so all the lights will be off, day or night. What does the nighttime mean? That means that our NVGs, or our night vision goggles, are able to see the engine gauges. They have filters actually on all of these. The dimness, the brightness, all of these lights are the engine. So this whole panel right here has only to do with the helicopter. This is our rotor RPM, very important, it keeps us in the air. And these are our engine gauges, which are the most important. Fuel over on the left side, so our fuel quantity. The TOT, that's a turbine outlet temperature. That's how hot the turbine is. The N1, the compression speed, and then the torque, how much torque you're pulling on the blades. In startup, these three gauges will be separate like that, and as soon as you hit 60 on N1, they will go to 1, and it's called the FLI. And what that does is it makes one gauge that has all of them combined. So if you're getting close to the yellow in any of them, it'll pull the yellow up. And that's easier when you're flying to only look at one gauge. If you are getting worried about getting close, like if you're worried about over torquing, you can also put it back to this 3-page when you're flying. You just have to look at all three. This is our outside air temperature. Down here is our engine oil and our engine oil, or our pressure, oil pressure. And you can see this has a red underline under right now because the engine's not on, so we have no oil pressure. Down here is our battery and our generator. These two gauges down here are super important. So this is our fuel flow. So this tells you how many gallons per hour you're using. So this helicopter, we generally plan 45 to 50 gallons per hour. And this is how much fuel to the end. So as soon as you start up and you get in cruise flight, it'll say an hour, 42 minutes. These are our backup gauges, so our backup artificial horizon in case this one were to fail, backup airspeed, and our backup altimeter. Over here, this is the same sort of gauges. This is our ground speed, which will be the same as over there. This will also be a tape, airspeed tape, so you can just look over and see. On this side, this is our vertical, our VSI. So if you're climbing, it'll say +1, +2, +3. That's 100. So it'll be 100, or you're descending 100 feet per minute. Also our altimeter over here. You set your standard air atmospheric pressure based on what the ATA says it is, which should be right around there for today. And then the RA is the radar altimeter. That's very important because that's how high you are above the ground, how high the helicopter physically is. So why does this say 5,080 and this one says 0? One is MSL, mean sea level, and one is AGL, above ground level. So right now, because we're sitting at 5,000 feet, the helicopter feels like it's at 5,000 feet. But really, the radar altimeter says we're a foot above the ground. This is important for performance planning. Down here on the bottom is all of our radios. So this is our fuel pump, this is our generator, pitot-static tube, which the pitot measures the ram air pressure. That's how fast we're flying. Servo has to do with the hydraulics. Warning test light, that's basically, if you watch this, it'll test all of our lights. So we want to make sure every single one of these lights work before we start up. If one of these is burnt out and it doesn't turn on, it might have a failure in flight and we don't know if it's going to come on. As well as these screens, you want these numbers to be the same and all these colors to match. So purple is fuel, you want to make sure those lights work. Once I let go, we're going to watch the torque gauge. It's going to come up here and it's going to measure the torque. You want to make sure it goes to 100 for a couple seconds and then back down. Back down here to these, we have our avionics, our fire test. All of these are our comm, our traffic. Pulse lights are the lights on the bottom that pulsate. Supposedly that's supposed to keep away birds. And this is all the EMS stuff. So we have EMS power, the inverter, and the oxygen. So I control that up here for them in the back. These are our radios. This is our 800 radio. So we have our dispatch, as well as the medical crew is able to talk to EMS, ground support, anybody that's going to help us land on a scene call, as well as give report on an interfacility transfer. And these control which radios I'm talking to. So as you can see, I have 2 frequencies up here and 2 frequencies down here. This one's called COM 1 and this is COM 2. So if I want to talk on COM 1, this transmit has to be all the way over on COM 1 and this has to be flipped up. If COM 2 is talking and I'm trying to talk and listen on COM 1, I can just flick COM 2 down and it silences them. Happens a lot out here in the Denver frequencies. Sky is our sat phone, which is down here. You can scroll down. I control it mainly, and the med crew usually talks on it. Address book dial, and you can manually put in numbers too. And the other thing is the 800, so I have to be on the 800 to talk on this. So you just have to know which comm you're talking on. Transmit, so the RX is for transmit to listen to these guys. ICS is the med crew or us inside here, and this volume, this Vox is the pilot. So you're constantly dialing all these to how everybody likes it. Switch a frequency, you just tap it, switch it like that. If you want to put it back in, you can just type it in. Hit 118.4 is the one that we use, and then just hit transfer. Transfer it automatically. Altimeter, you just ident, or excuse me, the transponder, you just ident. That's our discrete squawk code, so everybody knows when we're going through airspace. 0313, we're Lifeline 1, a Medevac helicopter. So one of the coolest things about this is an Airbus product with this helicopter, the only one I've ever had, is there's a button down on the collective and you just tap it and you can do this in flight, and it's our whole performance planning on the fly. So you put in your weight for the day. So in this EEW is empty equipped weight. So I put in myself, the pilot weight, the medic's weight, the nurse's weight, and my max patient weight for the day. From there, I'm gonna zero these out here because I have everything in here. And the helicopter is gonna measure this usable fuel that we have on, what we actually have right now. So we have 489 pounds, and that gives us our all up weight right here. It's gonna take in our OAT, which is our outside air temp, and it's gonna tell us if we have IGE, which is in ground effect hover, or OGE, hover out of ground effect. Super important for performance. You can do it on the fly. If we're up in the mountains and I want to know if I have power to land, it'll tell me. So what does it look like if I don't have power? Well, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to press up on the altitude and we'll see where we don't have power anymore. As you can see, if I go up in altitude, the temperature is going to go down. For every 1,000 feet, the temperature goes down 2 degrees. So I'm going to keep plusing this up, and then you see it goes yellow right there. So I would not have added ground effect hover at 10,000 feet based on today. Now you also have to take into consideration we would burn off fuel before we would get there too. So the controls in the helicopter, we have quite a few of them. We have the cyclic, which is this between my hands. Most of these buttons, this is to override the autopilot. This is the autopilot. If you're coming into hover, you can push the button down and hold it, or you can just fight it. Most of all these buttons we actually don't use. There's an ident button, which is the same as that if you don't want to take your hand off the controls. The other button that we have down here, this is just force trim. We just really don't have any of these hooked up in this helicopter, but it looks like a lot. On the back, there's a trigger switch on the back, and that's how you queue up the radio. So if you watch over here, it'll say transmit. That's how I talk to the tower as I push it on the back here. The control down on my left-hand side, this is a collective. It actually controls the pitch in the blades. So if you pull up on the collective, that's going to pull pitch into the blades. And if you push down, it's going to take pitch out. On the collective is the throttle, and this has a detent spring. So it's just ground idle, or you flip it, and it's flight idle, one or the other. So you want to take the helicopter from ground idle to flight idle. That's going to take your RPM up in the green, and it makes it high enough for you to fly. And the last controls are the pedals on your feet. That controls the anti-torque in the tail. Basically, when you add power and you're pulling pitch in, you're adding a lot of torque in the blades. You're going to have to counteract that with the pedals. So the cyclic controls the plane of the disc. Collective controls the throttle and pulling up pitch, and then the pedals control the anti-torque.
So that is all I have for this week's video. Like I said, next week I will for sure be releasing the full helicopter tour. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below, and I will see you next week.